In 2007, Circuit City, America's electronics giant, recorded $12.4 billion in annual sales, over 700 stores, tens of thousands of employees. 6 decades of disciplined expansion had built what insiders called a cathedral of American retail, so dominant, so deeply rooted, that its permanence seemed beyond question. Within 18 months, that cathedral would be reduced to rubble. Not by a competitor, not by a recession, but by decisions made by the very people entrusted to protect it. To understand this fall, you first need to stand inside the cathedral. At the moment, it still seemed eternal. Step through the glass doors of Circuit City in 2006, and the world opens up in a blaze of fluorescent light and possibility. The air hums with anticipation. Towering shelves display plasma screens and surround sound systems, each aisle a procession of the latest gadgets, rows of digital cameras, camcorders, the first flat-screen TVs gleaming like stained glass. The store's red and white banners stretch high overhead, echoing the grand arches of a cathedral nave. Richmond, Virginia, is the heart of this empire. The Malin Drive headquarters stands as the sanctuary. Thousands of employees moving with purpose, their badges clipped like vestments, their voices echoing off polished floors. In the boardroom, executives speak of the cathedral with pride. They point to the numbers: $12.4 billion in net sales, 8% growth over the previous year, more than 700 stores, and a workforce approaching 47,000. The company's own advertising proclaims we've got it all, and for a moment, it seems true. Circuit City is not just a store, but a destination, a place where families gather on weekends, where the promise of new technology feels almost sacred. The flagship stores are designed for spectacle. Wide aisles invite customers to linger, to test the newest laptops, to lose themselves in a wall of sound from home theater displays. Ribbon-cutting ceremonies draw crowds, and local news cameras capture the excitement as new locations open across the country. Inside, sales associates, many paid on commission, move with the confidence of experts, guiding shoppers through the maze of choices. The hum of business is constant, the rhythm of transactions as steady as a choir. Behind the scenes, the numbers soar. Inventory climbs to nearly $2 billion, a sign of both ambition and risk. The company's stock trades in the high teens, analysts debate its prospects, and competitors watch with envy. Circuit City's headquarters is more than an office. It is a command center, a symbol of American retail power. Every decision reverberates outward, shaping the lives of employees and customers in every state. Yet beneath the polished surface, a quiet tension lingers. Same-store sales have started to slip, down more than 10% in a critical quarter. The headlines celebrate another year of record revenue, but the profit line wavers, a shadow at the edge of the light. Still, in this moment, the cathedral stands untouched. The company's leaders walk its halls with the certainty of builders whose work will last for generations. But cathedrals, no matter how grand, are not immune to fire. The question, unspoken but heavy in the air, how long can this sanctuary endure? In 1949, Samuel S. Wurtzel opened the doors of a modest appliance store in Richmond, Virginia. He called it the Ward's Company. His vision was simple: treat customers with respect, offer honest advice, and never cut corners on service. Over the next 3 decades, that single store became the seed of something far greater. Wurtzel's discipline set the tone. Each new location was a stone laid with care, every expansion measured and deliberate. By the early 1980s, the company had grown into a regional power, but Wurtzel was not content to settle. In 1984, the company took on a new name, Circuit City Stores, and went public on the New York Stock Exchange. The listing was more than a financial milestone. It was a declaration. Circuit City had arrived as a national contender, ready to shape the future of American retail. Growth did not come through luck or reckless ambition. Circuit City diversified beyond televisions and appliances, moving into computers, car stereos, and home audio. In 1992, the company made a daring move, acquiring CarMax and venturing into used car sales, a gamble that showed its appetite for innovation and willingness to challenge the status quo. Circuit City's leadership believed that the future belonged to those who could adapt, and for a time, that belief paid off. By the end of the 1990s, the company's footprint stretched across the country. Stores multiplied, each one a testament to the founders' original promise of quality and expertise. The new millennium brought another transformation. In 2000, Circuit City unveiled its Horizon big box format, designed to dazzle customers with vast showrooms and immersive displays. The stores became destinations, cathedrals of technology, where families could wander for hours, marveling at the latest innovations. Headquarters on Mayland Drive in Richmond became the nerve center, orchestrating a network that would eventually reach over 1,400 stores and employ nearly 47,000 people. At its peak, Circuit City was the nation's second-largest electronics retailer, second only to Best Buy. Yet as the towers rose higher, the foundation remained rooted in Wurzel's original values, discipline, ambition, and the belief that a well-built structure could weather any storm. The company's leaders celebrated each milestone as another stone in the cathedral's great arch. But even the strongest walls can hide cracks. For all its grandeur, the question lingered: could a structure built over decades withstand the pressures gathering on the horizon? The answer would come, but not yet. For now, the cathedral stood, its spire gleaming, a monument to vision and persistence, waiting for the first tremor. The announcement landed with the force of a thunderclap. On March 28, 2007, Circuit City's leadership issued a statement that would echo through every corner of the company. 3,400 store employees, roughly 8% of the workforce, were being let go effective immediately. The language was clinical. Those dismissed, the company said, were earning well above the market-based salary range for their role. In the official press release, CEO Philip J. Schoonover spoke of controlling costs and positioning the company for long-term strength. But for those on the receiving end, the words felt hollow. The mechanics of the layoff were swift and impersonal. Employees were called into back rooms, handed severance packets, and told they could reapply for their old jobs after a mandatory 10-week wait if they were willing to accept lower pay. For many, that choice was no choice at all. Years of experience, loyalty, and expertise were reduced to a line on a spreadsheet. Some had worked the sales floor for decades, guiding families through the maze of new technology, building relationships that stretched beyond the register. Now, in a single afternoon, they were gone. Bobby Young, a 20-year veteran of the Richmond store, described the moment as being treated like a number, not a person. His story was echoed in newsrooms across the country. Local papers ran headlines about the mass firings. Analysts questioned the wisdom of discarding the company's most knowledgeable staff, those who had once been the backbone of Circuit City's vaunted service reputation. Behind the scenes, a $35 million restructuring charge appeared in the SEC filings, a stark line item in the annual report. The company projected $120 million in annual payroll savings, but the cost would run deeper than any balance sheet could show. Public reaction was swift and bitter. Customers complained of wandering aisles with no one to answer their questions. Lawsuits soon followed, including a discrimination case in California alleging that older, higher-paid workers had been targeted. The press began to ask whether the company's leadership understood what they had set in motion. Merrill Lynch analyst Danielle Fox warned that the cuts might boost short-term earnings, but kill the stores in the long term. Inside the cathedral, the mood shifted overnight. Survivors moved quietly, watching colleagues clear out their lockers. The sense of mission that had once defined the company's culture began to fray. What had been built over decades, trust, expertise, a sense of belonging, was dismantled in days. The cost-cutting logic that promised salvation now cast a long shadow. As the doors closed behind the last wave of departing employees, a question hung in the air. How much of the cathedral could be stripped away before the whole structure gave way? The Firedog initiative began with the promise of salvation. In a conference room lined with glass and ambition, Chief Digital Officer James K. O'Neill mapped out a future where Circuit City's stores and website would finally speak the same language. Firedog was more than a tech upgrade. It was a bridge to a new world, where online orders could be picked up in store, and home installations would tie customers to the brand for years. The board approved millions for cloud infrastructure and enterprise software. By early 2008, the company had spent $3.7 million just on cloud services. Consultants from Accenture delivered risk reports warning of integration delays. But the potential was clear. Pilot stores showed a modest sales lift. The dashboards flickered with hope. Yet behind closed doors, the mood shifted. Chief Financial Officer Lisa M. Cheng grew anxious as the project slipped its timeline and the budget swelled past forecasts. Pressure from activist investors mounted. A risk assessment flagged the fragile state of the company's liquidity. The enterprise resource planning upgrade, meant to unify sales and inventory, now looked like a liability. Emails between O'Neill and Cheng grew tense. The finance team circulated a variance alert. $5 million over budget in the third quarter alone. The boardroom filled with the quiet dread of missed targets. On May 15, 2008, the decision came down in the form of a single-page memo. O'Neill and Cheng signed their names to the order. Effective immediately, the Firedog initiative is terminated. All further investment is suspended. The memo cited budget overruns, 38% above the revised forecast, and a strategic shift toward a cheaper third-party platform. The cost-benefit sheet attached to the memo showed a projected internal rate of return of just 2.3%, far below the company's hurdle rate. The spreadsheet's red numbers were as stark as a warning bell in a silent church. Consultant warnings and pilot feedback were swept aside. The $3.7 million sunk into cloud contracts vanished overnight. The technology team boxed up their prototypes. The omni-channel dream, Circuit City's last, best hope to survive the digital age, was cut off with a signature. In the weeks that followed, the company's liquidity tightened further. The digital bridge was gone, leaving only a widening chasm between what Circuit City had been and what it needed to become. The cathedral's vault, once so carefully constructed, now stood open to the coming storm. The final collapse began not with a dramatic announcement, but with a silent tightening of the noose. In the summer of 2008, Circuit City's suppliers started to lose faith. For years, the company had relied on generous credit from vendors, millions of dollars worth of televisions, computers, and appliances shipped to stores on the promise of future payment. But as cash reserves dwindled and sales fell, that trust evaporated. HP, once a steadfast partner, slashed its floor plan credit line by 30%. New shipments now required cash on delivery, draining what little liquidity remained. Each week brought new warnings, invoices flagged as overdue, emails from vendor finance teams escalating demands for payment. The store shelves, once crowded with the latest gadgets, began to look sparse and uncertain. On November 4, 2008, the illusion of solvency shattered. Samsung filed a claim in Delaware bankruptcy court for $150 million in unpaid invoices. The number landed like a thunderclap, an unmistakable sign that the supply chain had broken. The court docket, stamped with the official Chapter 11 case number, listed Samsung's demand alongside a growing roster of creditors. The very companies that had filled Circuit City's cathedral with the tools of modern life were now lining up to claim what they were owed. Inside headquarters, the legal team moved quickly. The company filed for bankruptcy protection that same week, seeking shelter from a storm that could not be outrun. The filing spelled out the mechanical cause. When credit lines snapped, the business could no longer function. Vendors refused to ship. Inventory dried up. Payroll, rent, and loan payments all became impossible to meet. The cathedral's vault, once a symbol of strength, now echoed with the absence of trust. There was no single moment of explosion, just a series of quiet, irreversible withdrawals. Each supplier pulling back, each claim added to the docket, each day bringing the company closer to insolvency. By November 10, 2008, the doors to Circuit City's future had closed. The collapse was not a sudden fire, but a slow, relentless extinguishing of light, leaving only empty shelves and unanswered phones where a retail empire once stood. The silence inside Richmond's empty Circuit City storefronts carries a weight that numbers alone can't measure. Once these aisles buzzed with life, now the echo of footsteps bounces off bare floors, a reminder of what the city has lost. The closure of Circuit City's headquarters and flagship store left a scar on Richmond's economy that the City Council could not ignore. In the fiscal year following the bankruptcy, municipal records show $12 million missing from the city's tax base. That loss, once filled by sales taxes, business license fees, and enterprise zone incentives tied to Circuit City's operations, forced the city to cut services and dip into emergency reserves. Council minutes from March 2009 record a unanimous vote to classify the shortfall as a municipal impact loss, the largest single-entity tax shock Richmond had faced in decades. The pain ran deeper than the budget. The unemployment rate in the Richmond metropolitan area climbed to 6.2% by mid-2009, up from 4.5% just 2 years earlier. More than 1,200 jobs vanished from the city almost overnight. Store clerks, warehouse staff, supply chain drivers, each a thread in the fabric of local life. The city's labor department tracked the spike, noting that retail and logistics layoffs rippled outward, touching families far beyond the original company walls. For every job lost at Circuit City, others soon followed in restaurants, dry cleaners, and small shops that had depended on the store's steady flow of customers and workers. City leaders scrambled to respond. A $5 million emergency grant from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership was rushed through to fund retraining and job fairs. Former employees formed advocacy groups pressing for expanded unemployment benefits and new opportunities. Local business owners tried to fill the void with pop-up electronics boutiques, but the loss of a corporate anchor left a vacancy no small venture could fully replace. The lessons are etched in the city's financial ledgers and in the memories of those who watched the cathedral fall. A single company's collapse can unmoor an entire community, hollowing out both its economy and its sense of purpose. For Richmond, Circuit City's downfall stands as a warning. The foundations of prosperity are more fragile than they appear. And the cost of losing them is measured not just in dollars, but in the silence that follows. Today, empty Circuit City shelves still haunt hundreds of American towns. As online giants rewrite the rules, the lessons of collapse remain urgent. Empires built on vision can vanish overnight through one blind turn. For every new cathedral of commerce rising, the threat of fire, complacency, missteps, and lost purpose never disappears. What we build endures only as long as we remember why it mattered at all. Share your thoughts below.